Everyone. I'm gonna just start filling the air as we wait for everybody to come in. My name is Isaac Zablocki. I'm the Director of Film Programs at the JCC in Manhattan. And we'll get started in just a few minutes with this very special conversation with the director of Abe that is brought to you in part by the Great Big Jewish Food Festival. And we'll tell you all about that in a minute and more. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes to let everybody join in. In the meantime, I say this at every one of these Zooms. I say right now, use speaker view. Use gallery view, and look around for your friends. Say hi, and flip through all the pages. Make sure everyone's dressed, and once we get started, then I recommend actually switching to speaker view, which you could do up on the top right for those using it. And we'll give it one more minute. We usually start these things 3 minutes after. We hope you all watched Abe already. You all viewed. I see more people joining. You've all viewed Abe. If you have not, hopefully there won't be too many spoilers, but you'll want to see the movie afterwards. It happens sometimes that people have yet to learn the systems of how we're doing these conversations, that these are after the viewings. And we hope you enjoyed the film. I think we're ready to jump in. So I'm going to start and share once again. I'm Isaac Zablocki. I'm the Director of Film Programs at the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. And this Q&A is brought to you as part of the Great Big Jewish Food Festival. How many of you have gone to other events at the Jewish Film Festival? Wave your hands if you have. This is going to be going on all week. It's a 10-day online festival celebrating Jewish food. You have to make all the food yourself. And you can check it all out at jewishfoodfest.org for all the events and amazing content that are on offer. And all events are free, so join for that. There are some other food-related film events. Check those out too through HiFlix. We've offered a few films this week for free. And many, many other events. And I want to give a big thank you to Sarah K. Lax, who is here with us, who is organizing it from the JCC Manhattan's perspective. And she's giving a thumbs up. She's got it all. If you have any questions, text her right now. No, just kidding. Don't bother her. She's working hard. Coming up at the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan's film program, we have this week, Tuesday night, we also have a Q&A with the director of Incitement. So please join us for that. You could check on our website, jccfilm.org. You could check out the places to screen, or the one best place to screen Incitement. And you can see that link in the chat right now. That will direct you there, and sign up for the Zoom on Tuesday night. And Thursday night, I believe, I'm really confused about all this, but Thursday night is our Tikkun Shavuot. It's the all-night event that we do every year. This year it's going to be virtual, and as part of the film element within that, there's hundreds of programs. I haven't counted, but probably close to hundreds of programs going on that night. And we're going to be hosting the creator of the Netflix show Unorthodox. So please check that out. It's going to be at midnight, so stay up for that and have some cheesecake. And the last thing I'll mention before we dive in is that our Israel Film Center Festival is starting June 7th to the 14th. So check that out as well. At israelfilmcenter.org/festival. We'll put the link in the chat in just one moment. Now I'd love to just jump into Abe. I'm going to start by asking a few questions, and then we'll open it to questions from the audience, and we'll turn on your mics. You are muted right now. Sorry to mute you, but we'll call on you. We'll let you know. We'll send you a chat to let you know if you have a question. Put it in the chat, and we'll call on you when it's your turn, and you'll be able to ask that question live. And I guess I'll take this moment to introduce Fernando Grostein Andrade. Did I even get that right? Fernando, he is the director of the film. This is the time now to move to speaker view and get a nice shot of Fernando. Fernando, just say hi and raise your hand so people.
Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Fernando. I am 39 years old. I am Brazilian. I recently moved to California 1.5 years ago. and I'm super happy that we are here together on this Sunday. Abe is a film that it took like 13 years to get made. So until today, I still can't believe it was released. You can imagine the relief it was.
And I'm happy to say that Abe, we had it, we originally screened it as part of our Other Israel Film Festival. It, of course, premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. Our Other Israel Film Festival in November screened it, and we're happy to have this conversation now and touch on a lot of topics. And I'll jump in by saying that the film touches, one of the amazing things about the film is really that it's light, it's fun, it works for, I'd say, almost any age group. And it touches on so many topics. You get into everything. You get into God, you get into religion, you get into the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. There is so much that's in there, and yet you somehow manage to keep a light tone. What were your goals when you wanted to tell the story?
At first, it was not like I didn't have like a specific goal. It was more like an anguish. I was doing a documentary about the Brazilian music master Caetano Veloso, and after shooting, we had some problems, and we need to shut down the production. I was 21, so something like that. I don't remember. So for me, it was like very frustrating. It was my first film. I had interviewed Almodovar, David Byrne, and Michelangelo Antonioni, and suddenly everything was vanished. So then I remember that my nephew was born, Joaquim, and my brother put me in touch with a producer who was trying to do a DVD about Jewish festivals for kids. And in all honesty, at first that struck me bad, and I couldn't realize exactly why. And then at the time, I had a vision that religion was something that was pulling people apart instead of bringing people together. I was like with all religious war in my mind. So at first I said, I do not want to do it, sorry. Then my brother, who is like a super wise guy, and also my older brother, told me that if I want to be an artist, I need to look at things with no prejudice and an open mind. And by the way, if I'm saying something weird, English is not my native language, so sometimes I change a few words, and I am dyslexic. So if something sounds too weird, let me know. So then I went to my psychiatrist at the time, and he gave me a book from Joseph Campbell, who is, as many of you know, an anthropologist that studied several religions and wrote a book about it called The Hero of a Thousand Faces, and many other books. And then my psychiatrist gave me a book from Campbell called You Are That, Transforming the Religious Metaphor. Like a super thin book, I really recommend to anyone. And it was interesting that Campbell says that the problems with religion is when you take religion as something literal, instead of looking religion as a metaphor. He says that, for instance, when you think about promised land as a metaphor, you start to think like metaphysically what you can do to be a better person and achieve a better place. When you think of promised land as an actual piece of land, you may kill and die for it. And for my surprise, I talked with a few rabbis, many Orthodox ones, and they all agree. They all said that the sacred writings, they need to be interpreted, and also, I must say there was something else that was like on my way connecting with the issue. First of all, I must say that like I'm Jewish. I always feel Jewish. I feel Jewish like cultural, ethnically, but in terms of religion was something always hard, hard because I came from a mixed marriage, and since a very young age, I was like marginalized among other Jewish kids because they say like I was not a real Jew. because my father was Catholic and celebrate bar mitzvah. But also when I come to teenage year, I found myself as a gay man. And I don't know if many of you know, there's a line on the Torah that says that gay man must be stoned to death. And obviously that was not on my plans. So what I did is that I tried to read this book with an open mind. Campbell says that once you see religion as a metaphor, you unlock knowledge from thousands of years of culture. And also he says something that resonates me a lot. He considered himself Catholic or something along those lines. But before that, he was kind of atheist. But when he had a heart attack, he was on the hospital and he looked at a crucifix. And somehow this helped him cope. I also read a book from Freud that I forgot the name. I mean, I know the name, it's Mal Estado de Civilização, but I don't know the translation in English. I think it's Civilization. It's a book that talks about anguish, you know, and Freud talks about religion as, talk about psychoanalysis, religion, sports, culture as tools to deal with our existential pain, which in my case is a lot. So then with all this in my heart, I decided to take another approach. And I remember that I lost my father when he was 10, but like just a little before, he gave me a book about Jewish culture and say, hey, Fernando, I think it's really important that you do your bar mitzvah. Your grandfather is going to really love it. And just to be clear, my father was Catholic and my grandfather was Jewish. So it's not like it is on the movie. And then my father died, and my grandparents, they escaped the war like a few years before the Holocaust. They are Russian and Polish. So I was happy to do that, not only because I consider myself Jewish and my Jewish identity, but also because I felt it was something important. Like many of you, I don't know who is Jewish or not here, but probably when you have a Jewish festivals, you may have the same experience as I, that like we are not only celebrating the date, we are celebrating life, because we all came from survivors or are survivors, you know. So with all this in mind, I start thinking about my family. And it was funny because I always had Christmas in my house. And it was funny because the former wife of my father was there with my brothers from that side. The former husband of my mom was there with my brother from the mom's side, and everybody was together in the table celebrating. And obviously, I know that it like probably took a lot of work, mind work for everybody to be having Christmas with their ex together and the kids. So who has been to a divorce know what I'm talking about. So that was my starting point, saying, what if things were different? Then I felt I need to change a couple of things. First of all, I decided to change Jewish and Catholic for Jewish and Palestine, Muslim Palestine, because I felt as a Jewish man was important to give voice to the Palestinians and recognize their struggle, their pain, and do my best to do an honest discussion. Second, I changed São Paulo to New York because I love New York, especially Brooklyn, because there's such a cultural clash there. We do have a lot of cultures in Brazil, but there are like major groups like Jewish, Portuguese, Italian, Japanese. But in Brooklyn, you have like a street of this country, the street of the other country, the restaurant of that part of the other country. So many people. Also, I was like trying to dare the statistics, and trying to do a Brazilian English spoken movie, which, believe it or not, it was super hard for a lot of people in Brazil to accept and understand, because they say, hey, you are the Brazilian director doing a Brazilian film. How dare you are doing an English speaking movie? And I remember that I met a director who was a friend that helped me a lot. I don't know if you guys remember. His name was Hector Babenco. He died. He did the Kiss of the Spider Woman, Iron Weed, and Hector told me, Fernando, so if your film is about the Everest, you need to do in a mountain here in São Paulo. Come on, do whatever you want. So that also encouraged me to do in English, because it's not only about doing in English, it's about being able to transcend our village, Brazil, to talk with the whole world. Because unfortunately, Portuguese-speaking films, they don't travel as well as English-speaking films. And the third thing I changed was my relation with food, because even though I'm a foodie and I love to cook and eat was one of my biggest passions. Initially on the story, there was a dappling that was like coming from my life. Like when I lost my father at 10, I start at 11, like any other normal 11-year-old boy, to grow orchids. And I joined some orchids club with the average age was like 70, 80, and me, that was 11, you know? So, and that was a very cool experience. And after that, my stepfather was the person who raised me, and he was a great cook. So I decided to replace the orchids for food, you know? So that was the main ingredients of Abe. And coming back from where I started, like I was thinking, he was willing to give a DVD with Jewish festivals to my nephew, Joaquim. Then I say, okay, I'm gonna do my best to do a movie which has values that I would like to teach to my nephew or any other kid. Values that I will be proud of someday when I have a kid, he can watch and enjoy. And I also had an inspiration of Pixar movies that I absolutely love. So I have the idea of doing a live action Pixar. So Abe is like a blend with all those emotions, feelings, and stuff that were like going on my life.
Wow, that explains so much. Thank you.
Sorry, it was a long answer.
No, and it fills in a lot of where this film is coming from and a lot of the questions I wanted to ask. I wanted to jump into a few of these topics that you're bringing up in a little bit of a deeper way. I'm going to start with one thing that I found really interesting in the film is bringing up Palestinian and Israeli, and there's actually also there's the question of Israeli versus Jewish cultures, which are two different things, obviously. You actually I mean, there's a little bit of a mix between them within the film. And you kind of like combine them a little bit, but one of the nice things is that I didn't feel that there was an imbalance. I mean, I'm sure it upset people from both sides. I'm sure Palestinians watch the film and say, "Oh, we're so pro-Israel," and Jews who watch the film say, "Oh, we're so pro-Palestinian." But maybe I'm not seeing it as objectively, but I thought that there was a really nice balance in trying to bring in all perspectives here, and not saying that, you know, the mother was more right than the father or any direction like that. How did you create that balance is one question. But also I wanted to talk about that dichotomy between, because I think this is also going to relate to my next question, which is going to be about food. That's the Israeli culture, the Jewish culture, the Middle Eastern culture, and the American culture. Where those things kind of, how you found the balance between all those things in the film?
First thing first. I wrote the first version of the screenplay by myself, and I showed to a very respected and nice Brazilian director. I don't know if you guys heard of Walter Salles. He did Central Station, Motorcycle Diaries, Dark Water, among many other movies. And Walter told me that the screenplay, the idea was very good, but the screenplay was not, because I didn't have the skills at the time to write something like that, you know, that it was like English spoken, dealing with other cultures. So I met a New York producer who kind of helped me and mentored me. and he he said I was writing about something that I don't know, and it was a very hard research because it's we must say that the Israel and Palestine conflict is one of the most complex conflicts in the world, or maybe the most complex. So he showed me an article in the New York Times about a play called Food and Fadwa from two amazing American Palestinian writers called Lamis Isaac and Jacob Kater. And it was very interesting because I invited them to do the screenplay. At first, there was a moment that everybody was starting to know the other. We did that on restaurants, from Baltazar to an amazing Palestinian restaurant in New York called Tanoring. I don't know if you guys have been in Brooklyn. It's really amazing. At a certain point we built trust between us, and I gave the screenplay to them, and they rewrote with their point of view. Obviously they are like from Brooklyn, they are Palestinians, so they know a lot about things that I have no idea coming from a Brazilian perspective. So then also has another concept, which is this movie is the conflict through the point of view of a child. So we are safe because it's a child learning. It's a child hearing one side, is a child hearing the other side. It was a child, like we as a film, we are not saying that this is right, this culture is right on this, that culture is wrong on that. We are just giving, like, at least I think, honest discussion with fair points and important points and angry points and crazy points of both sides. But even though I felt that I couldn't make this movie if I didn't do like a deeper research, so I started shooting a documentary to know about more about Middle Eastern food and flavors. So I traveled to Israel and Palestine and stayed there a whole month, interviewing people from the food world, from Mahada Yehuda. Sorry, my Hebrew is terrible. Can someone correct me later, please? The market from Jerusalem. Okay, this is a safer way to frame. Also, restaurants in Palestine. I went to the West Bank. I went to Bethlehem, like many places. I didn't enter Gaza, but I was on the border. I interviewed like 30 or 40 people there. So I did all that before going to the set, and I did my best to represent both cultures, even though I know that nothing's perfect. But at the same time, I'm proud because, for instance, there are things that I learned with my writers. That moment when they say like that about anti-Semitism and that Arabs are Semites as well, that for me was like totally new. Like I never thought about that, And also there's something on the film that I think it's like common ground between not only those cultures but many others, which is when the grandfather loses his tempers and says that it was a mistake to bring a child into this world, something like that. It was a mistake to bring a child into this mess, something like that. And that for me was super important. First, because it shows, like, I never heard about a grandfather that is not absolutely crazy in love with his grandchildren, Like I never heard of it. Like it's always one of the most pure, sacred relations between human beings, is like grandfather and grandson, grandmom and grandson. So what makes how blind by hate is someone that is able to say something that implies that the non-existence of one of the things that he loves the most. For me, it is like stripping the clothes and exposing a naked truth of how stupid we are when we are poisoned by hate. And I'm not talking about here Israelis. I'm talking about Israelis, Palestinians, Brazilians, supporters of Trump, supporters of Hillary. Like everybody is able to reach that state of tempers, including me. Like many times on my life, I lost my temper, especially when I was sometimes in set, and when we do independent movie, we don't have money for absolutely nothing, you know. So it comes into one of those reality shows that you are like, no sleep, no food, people fighting, no equipment. Oh my God, the equipment is broken. So like the test on our limits, and sometimes I don't do this anymore. But in the past, I blew it, say, brah, awful stuff, and I say, oh my God, I said that, you know. So and then you try your best to like rebuild, reestablish the relation. Sometimes you are able to do that, sometimes you're not able to do that. So putting this on the film was double meaning for me. One meaning was talk about the others, the other meaning was to apologize with the people that I already lost my tempers, because I have a sharp tongue.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that being actually a very poignant moment in the film and very shocking, and that's really, I think, ties it together nicely for me. There's a lot to discuss here. I also wanted to share, I remember when we screened this film during our other Israel Film Festival, that we had children in the audience, some of them from mixed families, some of them from really diverse backgrounds, some of them coming from families who were going through divorce. And it just related to so many people in so many different ways and had very positive reviews. So I'm hoping our audience here also, that we get a diverse audience to see this film. And what I want to recommend before we jump into any more questions is, this is a small film, it's an independent film. Tell people, tell your friends about this film. Tell people to watch it. It's accessible, and it's kind of, I mean, a great Sunday afternoon viewing for those of you who watched it this afternoon. You know how that could work nicely. So it doesn't hit you over the head too much. So please do spread the word. I had two more questions, and then I'm gonna pass this over to our audience to ask some questions. I want to talk about food for a moment. And the food in the film is, of course, fabulous, and there's so much of it. And I think the message of the fusion food was one of the things that attracted me personally to the film. I thought that was a great message. But I mean, it's shot beautifully. The food just, it's one of those movies that makes you hungry. And I wanted to jump into this question that I was mentioning before, as far as I would love to know how you chose the food and worked with the food on the film itself, how you chose your recipes, were you constantly eating on set? But also, if you could take a moment to talk about that separation between Middle Eastern food and Jewish, I'll call it European food, that's possibly more prevalent in America.
Well, I did a very extensive research through the course of these 13 years. So like every place I was going, I was like trying and eating and talking. And then I call the owners and call the cook, and I go into the kitchen, snoop around. So in Brazil, for instance, we not only have a big Jewish migration, but also a very big Lebanese migration, which has like amazing food. And by the way, for the Americans, there's a Lebanese course called Sfiha that I never find here in US, and it's absolutely delicious. And in Brazil, it's like you have it everywhere. So I went to when I went to London, went to Ottolenghi, like I mean, I went literally everywhere for 13 years just to do like a hands-on experience, besides my own house. My comfort food is more like Ashkenazi. So for instance, the food that my mom likes to do is like latkes, hash brown, varenics, which is for her is like one of the top things, So that was like more the comfort food that I inherit. But at the same time, even though I did this research, I was not able to do this because this was such a huge challenge. anything you could do wrong, you can offend a tremendous amount of people, you know, and that's exactly what the film was touching. So first, the screenwriters wrote the dramaturgically what they're thinking. The recipe thinking about dramaturgic terms, you know. They were always against like the idea that, oh, we eat the same food, so we are all the same, and let's sing kumbaya. They say don't do that ever. And then after they do this frame, I have a culinary consultant, a teacher from Brazil. Her name is Monica Mortara. And then we had a food stylist in New York. Her name was Michelle. And after we shot, the film was like super low budget. We only had 18 shooting days in New York. Who is from the film world knows this is like not enough at all. So then what I do, I reshoot a little bit more in Brazil. Then the money was over. Then what I did is like I invite a few cinema students to help me, and I keep shooting me, them, sometimes my housekeeper, sometimes the culinary, another food stylist. So like the close-ups, like I said, we need to have appetite appeal. It's important. It's important. So we like did and redid and redone and we refined a lot, you know. Like the question is like which food belongs to who is like just asking like what was before the Big Bang, you know. Because first of all, like you don't have like today with social network you can like precisely date things, you know. And we're talking about foods here that are like ancient foods, you know. Many I heard people saying that falafel came from India. Falafel came from Portuguese. We have in Brazil the acarajé, which looks just like the falafel. And then if I have like a Jewish house or a Palestinian house or Israeli house, Muslim house, saying, hey, my mom does this food for me, and my grandmother used to do it, and this being in my family for generations, like who am I to say this is not your food, you know? It's like something that we would never want to do it, you know. At the same time, like talking about American food, I, uh, I hope I'm not going to offend anyone, but I'm just first I want to say I think America has the best cinema in the world, the best music in the world. But when it comes to food, like I'm totally revolted with the fast food culture, you know. And but you know what? After living here, I understand why. In Brazil, the labor force is cheap, so like every middle class family has a housekeeper cooking fresh food for you. And I understand now that here in America, this is like that's not how things work. Like nobody has a housekeeper, and if they have, it's like 1 or 2 times a week. So this means that you need to work, go to the supermarket, cook, and life is tough for everybody. So sometimes like having the fast food is not because you really like it, but it's because it's what fits in your schedule, you know. Go to Trader Joe and buy the frozen food. And also we know that I hope I don't sound too naive here, but like a lot of corporations put a lot of addictive stuff in the food to make us addictive and literally poison us. So somehow this put us away from the act of eating, buying, producing, cooking our food, you know, which I think is like very, very cruel. So I try to make a point, a subtle point about that on the film, a way to try to celebrate fresh food made with traditional family history instead of traditional corporation profits, you know. So I mean that's what's behind the movie. I'm sorry if I offended everyone. I know I'm an immigrant here, and I'm like in your country, but like my words, they do not intend to cause any harm.
You don't love our burgers? Come on, man. No.
No,
And
the burger depends on how it's made. McDonald's burgers, by no means.
yeah, no, I think totally fair, though. Of course, we're all missing our favorite restaurants right now, so you're offending
Yes.
all of us. Actually, our screening today, and I'm going to ask just one more question. Our screening today is at a perfect day. Today's Eid al-Fitr, the ending of Ramadan. So I feel like us having this celebration today, also how it works out just before Shavuot, it's kind of good timing. But the last thing I wanted to ask you was about the amazing cast. You had a great cast, of course, and it felt like, like these people were really related at some times. And of course, I don't know how many, if everybody here knows, the lead, Abe, Noah Schnapp, is on Stranger Things, which is Netflix's most popular show at times. And that's huge. And of course, the Brazilian chef is a huge musician and a star. And I wanted to just hear a little bit about the casting and how that all came together.
Well, I think choosing the actor to play Abe was like crucial, was like life and death, And I watched the Stranger Things show before, from the early stages, before it was a hit show, and I totally fell in love with the acting of Noah Schnapp. I think it's focused, subtle, precise, And from the moment I invited him to an audition, we invite other actors too. There was another actor who was really good, but like from the moment I saw Stranger Things, it was Noah, and I think he did an amazing job. This guy is a super professional. He was like 13 or 12 when we were shooting. 13, yes, 13. Can you guys believe it that he never missed a line? He carries like 90% of the dialogue of the film. There was not a single moment during the shooting that he missed a line. And guys, like after he doesn't live in New York, he lives nearby, so we need to go back, come back. His mom told me that he was studying like overnight all the time. So it was really inspiring to see a hardworking kid like that. And also, like I'm gonna say that the shooting was a nightmare, because there was no money. Was super hard. It's hard to film in a city that's not yours, It's easier when you have money. With no money, it's super hard. So the thing is, Noah was always shining, always super calm, always motivating the team. So it was great. Then talking about Chico, from the same thing, I always thought about Seu Jorge. Seu Jorge, from those who doesn't know, he did City of God, which is a great Brazilian film. He's also one of the most famous musicians in Brazil. And we have something very different from when you compare Brazil to US. US is all about heroes, So like superheroes, or if someone saves someone else, it's a hero. Like the war hero, the hero culture is super celebrated here. I don't know why in my country we destroy every hero that we have. Like, so it's like almost everyone who is going to success. When it hits this point, the whole country, boom, slam and destroy this person, And one of the few people that resist is Ayrton Senna, Pelé, and Seu Jorge. And it was important for me to have someone like Seu Jorge, because usually when we say Brazil, people think on objectifying women, people think about soccer, and that's not how I want my country to be remembered, And I think the American music is the best, but the Brazilian is one of the best. And like we have João Gilberto, Caetano Veloso, Bossa Nova. I mean, it's a huge amount of talent, And having Seu Jorge, one of our few heroes, a musician, a guy that came from a very, very difficult reality in the favelas, who saw City of God knows what I'm talking about, is that reality. And today he's a Black Brazilian that is like super successful, super nice, an example, I said, we need him to represent Brazil in this film. And finally, the other actor I'd like to highlight is Margolis, which is one of the most funny persons I ever met in my life. He's super smart, super intelligent, teaches a lot. I mean, the whole casting, like Aryan, who played the Amir, who is an Iranian actor who is doing Succession. Dagmara, which is a Polish actress that did many movies, including and also a series like Succession. There's this amazing Jewish actor, Daniel Oreskes. He's from New York, and he did that play Oslo. I don't know who saw that play on Lincoln Center. So he was one of the main characters of the play. Salem, which is the Palestinian grandma. She's a very incredible person, like super sweet. She was always, again, I always remember her support me during that chaos, which was the shooting. Oh, she was always supporting. She's Syrian. And we also have Tony, who is a very celebrated New York actor and author, who was playing the Palestinian grandfather. He was Syrian. But like talking about representation, I have like a lot of Jewish actors to choose from to play the Jewish characters, and only a few actors was willing to play. Sorry, was Palestinian actors were available to play those characters. Very few Middle Eastern actors were available to play that characters. So I think us as Jewish people who have a very important, we are like super well represented on the industry. I think our privilege comes with responsibility of open space for who is outside the bubble, you know. So one of the things that I'm most proud of in Abe is that we have our Palestinian family represented on an English-spoken movie as a normal family and not as terrorists, you know. Because I think it's cruel that you have like a Arab kid, Middle Eastern kid, lives in US. He only sees himself on the screen as an extremist, you know, and this is bad not only for us. This is not only for him. This is bad for us Jewish. This is bad for the whole world. Sorry, I talked too much. I got excited.
That's unbelievable. Thank you so much. I'm going to open it now to questions from the audience. If you have a question, please place it in the chat, and we will try to get to you. We won't be able to get to everyone. We're going to start with a question from Larry Gevritz. Larry, you're on.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. My question, well, first of all, I enjoyed telling Fernando I enjoyed the film very much, and I enjoyed being an extra in one of the scenes, which was filmed in Midwood, Brooklyn for the bar mitzvah. It was one of the few times I was able to eat kosher food during the production, so thank you for that too. So my question is, in the same way that Abe in the film came from a divided family, you had the same experience. I'm wondering how your family handled the diversity that existed in your family, and if you use food to try to get the members of the family who are from different religions to try to get them together.
Well, my mom made me sign a non-disclosure agreement about our family issues. I'm kidding. So, like we have our differences in the family. Like I told you, like I'm a gay man, and my family comes. They are all amazing people. But the environment is like super conservative, you know. So it was like a whole experience to everybody to understand like what is to be gay, what is to be have a LGBTQ member in the family, you know. So that was one thing that was like a struggle during my teenage years. But regarding the division of my family itself, when my father died, it was like it was such a bomb. There was no other space, you know, for anything else. But yes, even though it's not out there, it was between some part of the family. What I'm going to say now, I never said to anyone, but like 1 year after my father died, I have a crazy family member on his side that kind of shout me and shake me and abuse me and say that my mom and my grandmother should have died on a concentration camp. But that was like a wacko on the family, and not the tone of the family. The tone of the family was always of love, support, all the time. But like every family will have someone that is like can't keep their shit together. Excuse my French.
I'd love to unmute Susanna. Susanna Behar, you have a question.
Yes. Hi. Thank you. It was a great film. I just watched it to be able to participate in this, and I'm so happy I did, because it's amazing to hear you. As good as the film was, to be able to listen to you is another dimension that unfortunately you cannot feel all of this while watching the film. It's great. We are lucky. But I wanted to ask you, because the song is so particular, the Jorge Drexel song that comes at the end, that's called Milonga del Moro Judío. It's did he write it for the film? I could have searched, but I didn't.
I think I wrote the film for him because I was listening to the music before writing the movie. You know, a music that you listen like 100 times in your life, like usually Andrea Bocelli. That was the case. Like I listened to this music over and over again, like I was writing the film for I think 13 or 10 years minimum. You know.
So it's an old song. I know a lot of music, but I didn't know that. Wow.
I need to send the film to him.
You should.
Yeah.
Congratulations again. It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have the next question from Martin Schwartz. Martin.
Hi. Yeah, I was wondering what the relationship was like between the Jewish Israeli actors and the Arabic actors on the set, and if you could tell us about some of the interesting discussions they may have had that were generated by the script. And congratulations, it was a really great, sweet film that was, like you said, touched on so many different themes. You could spend an hour pulling each one apart. But I was wondering about what happened on the set between the Jewish and the Arabic actors.
Thank you. Oh, it was all fun. I think like in order to be an actor, especially a successful one, you need to be ready to like kind of take your clothes off metaphorically and walk on the street, you know. Like a good actor, he must be ready to play any kind of role on any kind of situation, and you cannot do that without how can I say, facing your prejudice, like being able to touch the body of other actor and the other actor touching you without having the same meaning. It will be like someone's touching on the street. It's like actors are like people from other planets, other dimensions. That's why they're a little crazy, you know. But the good thing is that when all of these how can I say, explosion of the senses and the limits and exploration of the human soul comes with a lot of openness and wisdom. And so I mean, all productions that I was, not only Abe, but all my life, the actors always like having fun together. So for instance, there is a friend of mine who is an actor. His name is Milian Cortaz. He's one of the best Brazilian actors. He did, I don't know if you've seen that Brazilian movie, Elite Squad. But, well, he played a cop on the film. And one day, dressed as a cop, he started to stop and frisk. I don't know if this word is correct. All the crew, all the set, all the other actors, you know. So like they keep making jokes, you know, playing. I mean, thank God I never experienced a situation where I have two actors fighting or being not nice with each other.
Right, thank you.
Okay, we have time for one last question. Elliot, you're on. Elliot, are you there? Elliot Fitz?
Yes, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Thanks. Also, thanks, Isaac. I always look upon Isaac as the guru of Jewish film festivals, so it's nice to see Isaac. My question is, I like the film in many regards, but it wasn't a balanced perspective. I found the two families getting together repeatedly each time, engaging in the same shrill, obnoxious diatribes, insults, screaming, to the point that I just couldn't take listening to them anymore. And I'm glad you mentioned the point about the poison of hatred. But it seems that here's these two families together so many years. The kid is 12 years old, and they still engage in the same hateful dialogue. And I found that a little bit unrealistic and a little bit annoying. And maybe that was your intent, but I just found I couldn't take listening to them anymore. And maybe that's reality, but it was repeated twice in the film to the point that I just couldn't bear listening to these table talks anymore. What do you think about that? What was your design in creating this table?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for putting your critics on such a delicate matter, which is always very good for us filmmakers, because like it's not that, at least for me, it's not that we don't like to hear criticism towards our work. The thing is, we don't like to hear like mean criticism against our work, and you express your technical point of view, which I respect very much, and I accept your critic. I kind of think it's, I just want to say some points to you. First, it's very hard to do a movie that is like one size fits all, you know? So I thought one of the intentions for this movie was to be broad and not only talk to our Jewish community or to the Middle Eastern Muslim community, but to other communities. For instance, in Brazil, only like a small fraction of the country knows about the conflict. They think the conflict is about Jewish and Arabs and not between Israelis and Palestinians. They don't know that you can have Arab Jews, for instance. So I thought it's always a challenge when I was doing a movie, and I always face someone when I'm doing a movie saying, "Oh, this is too obvious," and I say, "I don't care. I want this film to be able to be seen by people who didn't have access to culture, so they can be a part of this, you know." And it's always a choice. Sometimes, like choosing to try to appeal to people who are not like how can I say, not expert on the subject, I can lose a little bit of the audience like you. So when I'm doing a film, I'm always trying to create this balance. And regarding the thing that you said, it's unrealistic. Well, we can take a look at Israel and Palestine today, and it's so hard. It's so unrealistic to see a family that is on these conditions. Like just for understand, we research a lot. We find one family that has a Palestine father and a Jewish mom. He didn't accept to give interview. He accepted to receive in his house in Israel that he considers Palestine, and we spent the whole afternoon together. So, well, so complex that I don't think that portraying this amount of conflict is unplausible. But anyway, I would like, Elliot, thank you very much for your critics and your kind words as you address them.
And Elliot, I don't know what your Thanksgiving dinners look like or any meal, but at my house, you don't have to be from a Palestinian and a Jewish family to be fighting like that at every meal. I know, especially at Jewish families, that seems to happen. Fernando, I want to thank you very much for really enlightening us and bringing us this fabulous film. I want to remind everyone to help spread the word about this film. Fernando wants to say something. Yep.
Yeah, can I do a final remark before everybody disconnects?
Please.
I just want to tell something that I don't know if you guys are aware that is happening. Like talking about the relation between Brazil and Israel and what's happening now. So before Bolsonaro, we had Dilma, and before Dilma, we had Lula, which is from the Labour Party, left wing. I'm not defending or criticizing. That's not the point here. But on Lula's foreign policy, he opened dialogues and bridges and support Palestinians and try to mediate the conflict. You know, these create a lot of criticism from the Jewish community in Brazil. So after that, we had Dilma, and we had a whole economic catastrophe. And after that, what happens? The Jewish community in Brazil, they want a candidate that was supporting, how can I say, Israeli defense that was like without any remarks, with any criticism, you know. Part of this, not all the Jewish community, but a big part. So a big part of the Jewish community, I have very important names, like people who donate like millions of dollars to Israel, for instance, support Bolsonaro. What happens? What happens next? Okay, Bolsonaro is like 1.5 years in power. He made a tremendous amount of misogynist, racist remarks that you are all aware of. But what I think you maybe are not aware of is that, like a couple of months ago, the Minister of Culture of Bolsonaro, he made a speech where he quoted Joseph Goebbels. He dressed himself as Goebbels. And then you're gonna say, oh, but he was fired. The thing is, many people say he was fired because he didn't hide his Nazi traits enough. Then we have the Ministry of Foreign Relations. You know, his father in the past was an ambassador in Brazil who stopped the extradition of a Nazi criminal from Brazil to Israel. The current Minister of Foreign Relations in Brazil said that his father was doing right. Last week, we had government propaganda, like advertising from the government, which part of the slogan was "Works set you free," which is the words that you have in Auschwitz. I can spend here like a long time portraying the Nazi remarks. I'm gonna tell the very two last one. Last Saturday, Bolsonaro was in front of the Palace of Government with their supporters, and their supporters were first praying for him because Bolsonaro is fighting against isolationism, and they all did the Nazi Heil Hitler salute to him. And this is on the internet, and he posted, okay? So finally, Bolsonaro called a rally recently. He did many times, but he called one rally against the isolation to fight COVID, calling for the shut of the Congress and calling to shut the Supreme Court. Another video leaked this week on a meeting that one of the Minister of Education of Bolsonaro said that they need to arrest all the Supreme Courts. During this rally, where Bolsonaro gathered a lot of people on this crisis, hug, exchange fluids, you know, cough, sneeze, they were marching together with the Israeli and American flag. So this is like a total misappropriation of the Israeli flag, of the Jewish struggle with all our grandparents went through, you know. And I remember that when we are in the San Francisco Jewish Film Festival, a Holocaust survivor showed up on the screening and said that Abe was one of the best movies she ever saw. And that touched me a lot because I did this movie like thinking about what happened with our ancestors, you know. And I think we all have a very important responsibility to stop this from happening again. And it's so hard to see a president that is defending death squads. And I just want to ask you guys to do whatever you can to stop this. And I'm doing whatever I can to stop this as well. I think we took for granted that the liberty we are living, the scene with Bill Clinton and Yasser Arafat and Shimon Peres, was the reality. But our nightmares are so close to us, and we cannot think that this is not going to happen again. This is unbelievable. This is impossible. Because 2 years ago, if you ask anyone in Brazil if Bolsonaro was going to be a president, everybody would say he wouldn't. That was a joke. And he is. And he's doing all these policies. So far, we had 20,000 people dead in Brazil from Corona. You say, oh, this is not a big number when compared to US, but I think we don't have money to have to do the testing. So this number is sub-notified, you know. 50% or more of the country are not respecting isolation measures because they see the president doing that, you know, and not respecting. So I just want to share this with you because I think above all, the most important thing I can say to you that was watching me today is this. Okay, thank you very much.
Fernando, thank you. Thank you so much. I think everything you said hits very, very close to home here. And the first thing we could do is try to change our culture and try to make sure that during these very scary times, nobody takes advantage of that cheap emotion of fear. I feel that it's actually a lot of bad things are done because of people having fear, and I especially hope now we are in a really desperate period, and I hope that people do the right thing. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, man. It's beautiful to meet your house and your backgrounds. You know,
it's great to have everybody here. It's great to have a community. Thank you all for joining this. I want to give a huge, huge thank you to the Jewish Food Fest, the great big Jewish Food Festival. You could check out more at jewishfoodfest.org. We're halfway through the festival. Check out the Israel Film Center Festival coming up in June. This Tuesday, more about what's going on in our world, I feel, with the film Incitement, which is about the man who assassinated Rabin. I'm sharing here on the side different links where you could find out more information. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Fernando. Thank you.
Thank you.